Okay, I'm returning to the 2006 Altima, and I'm just going to talk about all that I've done up to this point and emphasize that all of this stuff did not fix the problem. All right, so the history on this is, to begin with, my wife was driving the car one night and she parked somewhere, and when she went out to start it, it wouldn't start. So I was on my way to go pick her up, and she tried to start it again, and it started. All right, and she was able to drive it home. But because of that no start condition, I put the computer on there, and it told me that the camshaft position sensor was bad. So I replaced that. Well, after that, I started getting all kinds of errors. I got misfire errors, which apparently has been fixed. I replaced all the coils and all the spark plugs, and the spark plug on number 3 in particular, the gap was way off on it. It's like it eroded away or something. So all new spark plugs, all new ignition coils, and that apparently fixed the misfire. The replacement of the camshaft position sensor also seems to be fixed. That problem has not come back. And I just put a cheap one in from AutoZone that's got a lifetime warranty. It's like 30 bucks. So far, no problems with that, and that was months ago. Of course, this car hasn't been driven a whole hell of a lot. The only driving I've done is to try to get the computer to reset for inspection. Okay, so after all that, or actually this was later, but I just mentioned it since it was there. Once I started getting P2A00, okay, P2A00, that has something to do with the oxygen sensors or the MAF. When you look it up online, they recommend replacing the MAF sensor. So I replaced the MAF sensor with a brand new Nissan one. Made no difference. I put the original one back in because it's good, and I'm keeping the other one for a spare, the new one for a spare. But this one is correct. Now the numbers were high at idle. It was giving me about 3.5 at idle, and it should be about 2.5 grams per liter or whatever hell it is. But I did the idle relearn, and that solved that problem. So now at idle, after the engine's warmed up, it is correct. It's at 2.5-ish, sometimes lower, sometimes high, but it's correct. Let's see. After replacing that, and that didn't fix it, then the next thing, research told me to replace was both oxygen, well, actually, the front oxygen sensor. So replaced it first by itself. That didn't make a difference. Then I found a video where a guy says you get that P2A00 on Nissans, and only Nissans, if the back oxygen sensor, the downstream oxygen sensor, goes bad. And I think it might have been bad because it was reading 0, or at least I thought it was. So anyway, I bought a new one of those and replaced it. It made no difference, but in the process, the fuse for the oxygen sensors, which resides underneath this fuse box cover here, it was blown, and so I was getting an error at that point of no heater on the O2 sensors. So I was stumped on that. I checked the one fuse inside that I knew about. There's two fuses. There's one inside in the fuse box, and then there's one under here. This is the one that was bad, but I didn't know it. So I checked the fuse inside, and it was good. So I assumed the harness was bad. So I replaced the rear oxygen sensor harness. Well, of course, that didn't fix it. And then at that point, I was getting a misfire. So at that point is when I replaced the coils and the spark plugs. All right, so time passes on, and I get a catalyst inefficient error, and I think it's a P420. So because of that, I replaced the catalytic converter. Well, this car is running great. It's got a lot of power. It doesn't mess up. It runs like a bat out of hell. It's running really good. But if I drive it for a while, I get the P420 error again for the catalytic converter, and I've got a brand new one in there. People are saying it's because the catalytic converter in place is not an original Nissan. I'm beginning to think that's not it. I'm beginning to think that the computer's bad, and that's what I'm about to do today. I'm about to pull the computer out, get the part on it, and see if I can get a used one somewhere and swap it out and see what that does. Today when I drove it on the highway. The oxygen sensors did some really strange stuff while I was driving. They were reading full voltage scales from like 0.04 volts to all the way up to 0.84 volts, something like that. So the full range. But the problem is, at times they would just go to 0. I'd look down at there at 0, And I don't, you know, why would it do that while I'm going down the highway? And another thing, the other day when I was replacing the water pump and the thermostat, I replaced those just because I had to take the catalytic converter off, and it's right there. It was just easier to do. When I did those things, I noticed when I would start the car, it would run smooth, and then it would lop. It would hesitate and blah 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 blah, and not. It would run rough for a minute, and then it'd run good again. Well, I finally figured out that what was going on is the car was going into open loop. Okay, when it goes into open loop, the oxygen sensors are basically ignored, and it just runs, you know, without any computer control apparently. So that's what that was. It wasn't water getting to the cylinders. I was really confused. I was thinking I must have a leaking head gasket. That coupled with a little bit of steam coming out the tailpipe, I really thought at that point I might have a blown head gasket. But no, it was because it was going in and out of closed and open loop. But today what I'm doing is I'm going to pull the computer out. I'm going to try to get a used one somewhere, but I got to pull it out first. So that's where we are, and I'll be back. Okay, I got the computer out. Of course, physically it looks fine, but electronically it may be screwed. So I'm going to get online, see if I can find one with a 63 and call around or whatever to find a computer, a number 63 computer for a 2006 Altima 2.5 liter. I am assuming that something has been zapped. I mean, with all the electronical problems I've been having ever since the camshaft position sensor went out, it just seems like it's, you know, the computer has died in some way. Of course, it may make no difference, but I compared the oxygen sensors to my son's 1997 Altima to get an idea of how it should be responding to idle and revving the engine, and his response, like I would think, you know, the voltages are low at idle, and as you rev it up, it increases in voltage. This car doesn't do that. This car stays at 2.8 volts for the rear oxygen sensor. Now the front one seems to respond reasonable, but at times it goes to 0. So why is it doing that? And it going in and out of closed loop after the car is already warmed up makes no sense. Now when it's cold, I think that's normal, but after being warmed up, no. So we're going to try that, and I'll keep everyone posted. Thanks for watching, guys. Okay, I hope you guys can hear me over this wind. It's terrible. Anyway, after getting that computer out, I started thinking maybe I should plug it back in to see if the connection between the computer and the harness was needing to be reseated, you know, because those things might oxidize. So I plugged the computer back in, and I tested things again. It's doing the exact same thing. So it wasn't a simple oxidized connection problem, apparently. At any rate, because of all the results, I've decided to order another computer, a used computer, and should be here next week. I will install it and give you guys an update at that time. Thanks for watching.